Now that we've appreciated what is reflective leadership and possibly how this reflective leadership, in some sense, we hopes to move towards all systems sustainability perspective and all systems certain perspectives. If you observe these leaders, if you mentioned Steve or MS Dhoni, you would see them having a decision making which also imbibes traits of reflective leadership. What are the three ways in which decision making can be taken? Decision making can be taken using cognitive way. Decision making can be taken using emotive way. And decision making can be taken using a conative way. And to my friends from the corporate sector who think this seems to be a sophisticated theory, don't worry, these are all a few simple jargons. I'll try to elaborate on each one. And I won't complicate even giving the components of each of this. If needed, one can always spend time. But a very quick summary of it is, you see, cognitive way of doing things is essentially using logic, science, and using certain law, etc., to ensure a decision is taken. In other words, if there is a lot of time that is there, you would always prefer to use a cognitive way of coming to a decision. Emotive way of decision making essentially is taking decisions based on emotions, feelings, and aspects related to that. Conative way of decision making is the instant part of it, and this instant part or the willpower part of it essentially is the conative way of decision making. In other words, if there is hardly any time there for you to take a decision and still you are able to take the right decision, then it is the conative portion of your brain which is working and ensuring the right decision. For example, MS Dhoni, you would have observed there are ample number of instances wherein the decision has to be taken and he goes ahead, takes a decision. Wherein, you kind of get surprised at how come he was able to so quickly take such a decision. Whereas other leaders and other members would have possibly not been able to come to a decision or would possibly have halted to the wrong side. That's the conative part of the brain. Conative, or let's say, for example, if workers have called out for a certain, you can say, strike in an industrial area, and if a notice of 1 week were to be served, then you would agree that the decision maker of the organization would be using the cognitive part of the brain. But if workers, there was a certain issue of, let's say, misbehavior of a certain employee, or on a certain issue, tempers run high or something like that, then it would, and yet you would know that, look, after 1 hour or after 2 hours, there will be a dharna or something else which will happen. Then your decision making is based on the emotive way of decision making. You would take into account the feelings, emotions that you are going to have, and possibly if you are a feeling type person, you will also take into account the feelings of the other party as well, and then come to an emotive way of decision. But imagine a bunch of workers coming and slapping you. The decision you take, the response you do at that particular point in time is a conative way of decision making. In that sense, the reflective leadership's one of the key aspect is decision making ought to be using all the three, and one needs to find ways and means such that the conative part of the brain gets sharpened much more than the other aspects. You see, you can outsource the cognitive part as a leader, or you can find ways and means to deal with it, because there will be enough members in your team with a good, you can say, IQ, logic, law, or you can even buy it from the market by hiring a BCG or someone out there. But when it comes to emotive and conative part of it, it is you, yourself, and that is going to be far more important. How you behave. Of course, there are various ways in which that are there. Let me quickly give three small stories to capture each aspect of this decision making. There was this young prince who would be very, very nasty, angry, and you may call it as a bad boy types. The prince wondered how does he go about. The king wondered how does he ensure that this prince could be made behavior could change. So what he did is he took him to a sage. The sage, what he did is he said, "Okay, I'll take care of him." On first day, the sage, what he did is took this young boy or young bad boy, let's say you can say the prince, and took him to a small sapling, and he said, "Why don't you please taste this sapling?" The prince picked the flower and not the flower, rather the leaves of it, that small tree sapling, and ate it, and he felt very bitter. And when he felt very bitter, what he did is he pulled out that particular sapling and threw it. "I'll not allow this particular tree to grow." To which the sage said, "Look, this is what is happening. Imagine if this tree grows, what will happen to it? It'll be very pathetic in taste. It'll be like a datura, etc., etc." He said, "Exactly." The sage said, "This is what is the problem with you. You, if you be a bad boy at a such an early age, and if you become so aggressive and greedy, and you fight with each person out there, imagine what will happen to you when you grow up." In other words, if you observe, the sage used the cognitive part of his brain to plan it out and ensure that the boy gets transformed. Uh, then I can give you one more kind of example of emotive way of decision making. But very simple, it goes to say that, look, while one can always keep appreciating that, look, there were a few, you can say, people out there. We often like young, bold, smart guys who kind of make dynamic decision making, etc., etc. It's all fine. But if you observe old wise men who take decisions, they take into account a lot of other factors and take decisions, which is essentially based on emotive way of decision making, and they have a very rich wisdom out there. So while it may look very fancy and upmarket, and you can say what do you call as very kind of Casanova kind of a stuff, wherein when you see young people talking of big things and you getting carried away. For example, most of the young MBA boys and girls who come for interviews for MBA admissions, they all end up talking of one to two benchmark, those leaders out there from the Western world, saying this is their benchmark. Fine. But if you see the same leader, what has he or she went on doing using Twitter or X? Hmm? So the point is, the emotive decision making is best captured by the behavior of old wise men when they take decisions. That's how I'll put it. For the conative way of decision making, I'll give you a very simple example. There was this old man who was very sick. So one day, parent, or I would put it as the son of this old man, said, after consulting his wife, what he said is, "Look, I'll take you to a certain place and ensure get to a new place." The old man agreed. He sat on the bullock cart. So there was this young boy who was very fond of the grandfather. So he said, Papa, Papa, I will also come with you wherever the grandpa is going. He kept on saying, look, why are you coming to this? He did not agree and he ran and sat on the cart, bullock cart. And finally, the old man, what he did is the father of this young boy took went to a forest area, and then he started digging a grave for the old man. Why? Because he was seeing the old man as someone who was unable to contribute economically, had a lot of problems, and somewhere both the husband and wife thought this is the best way they could possibly manage things in a more peaceful fashion. So this young boy started seeing that there was a there was a grave being dug and soil being taken out, etc. He kept on asking, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" He thought this small boy won't understand much. He said, "Look, I'm digging a small grave, and I'll put grandpa in this, and I will dump soil above it, such that grandpa is taken care of, and then we'll go home. Don't tell this to anyone." He said, okay. What this young boy did is he had the cognitive part of the brain. He started digging another grave beside the grave which dad had made. So this father of this young boy said, what are you doing? He said, I am digging one such that I will not need to take so much time when you become old. I will use this grave to quickly. I won't. You see, right now, Grandpa is tied with rope and he's being kept in the cart. I won't need to waste so much time when you become old. I will very quickly put it. So the young boy captured the cognitive part of the brain very well. Of course, the story ensures that the father understands the flaw or error which he is doing, and immediately takes the grandfather back home, and they are all three of them live happily. So with this, I think I'll capture my this thing by saying, look, decision making needs to capture all these three aspects: cognitive, emotive, and cognitive, and move further.